national headlines, Georgia State news and sports, and the local stories you care about. News Talk 1330 WLBB, Carrollton.
Well, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice Program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3. Also streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. And this morning, we're on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. So if you got the alarm that we're live on there, check us out. You can see my guest right now, and I'll introduce you to her. First of all, let me tell you that two Villa Rica residents did qualify for the open seat on City Council. Attorney Matthew Momtahan and retired Cheryl Bell. They're vying for the Ward 2 seat, which was vacated back in November by former Councilman Verlin Best. These two candidates are currently on the early voting ballots, and that today is the last day this week, but then they have every day next week, which is early voting. And Cheryl is our guest on this morning's Community Voice. Cheryl Bell, good morning.
Good morning, Colin.
Thank you for making the trek all the way down here to Carrollton from the City of Gold. I guess, before we get started, did you attend the history meeting last night?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, what was that? How was that?
It was very informative. I learned a lot of good stuff.
Is there anything, there's like maybe 10 or 11 items on that they mentioned they wanted to make historical sites. Anything that jumped out to you that you were surprised to see as far as maybe you didn't know about that were historical part of Villa Rica?
Not really. Most of them were already on there. They mentioned the Villa Rica jail, and I wasn't very knowledgeable about that place.
The Fullerville
but
jail, right?
Everything is Hart House, Rick's Tavern, the Connolly Marchman House, the Midway Baptist, or stuff like that. Very
good. She was the lady who headed that up, was our guest on yesterday's Community Voice. So anybody who's interested in that, they can check out our website, newstalk1330.com, and get more information on that. But let us now meet Cheryl Bell. Cheryl, who are you? Why are you here? Why are you running? What's good about you?
Well, first of all, I have to say I love this city. I love Villa Rica. And I have the time, the desire, and the initiative to serve this community in a way that's going to benefit the city today, tomorrow, and in the future. And I want to bring the same initiative and leadership that I brought to my community to the city as a whole. This city is growing, and I want to be a part of that. And I want to make sure that the residents are represented and their voices are heard. I can go into my story.
Absolutely.
Going to my story. Okay, I came here in 2014, and my neighborhood was one of those neighborhoods that didn't have a HOA. We had lost the HOA. The builder had gone bankrupt, and so
the neighborhood that they began work on it as well.
Yes, they started building it out in 2006, and then the builder went bankrupt in 2008. And so when I came along in 2014, a new builder was in there. They had came in there about 2011, I believe, and they were finishing out the homes in the front, but most of them along the back end.
Is this Charleston Place?
Yes, this is the Trails at Charleston Place.
Is that off of like the Villa Rica Carrollton Highway?
Yes, Highway 61.
61, right? Okay.
Correct. And I saw that, at first I tried to start a newsletter. I'm trying to bring the community together. That was my goal and purpose. And then I heard from residents that they didn't have street lights in the back and that they were getting broken into in their cars and things like that. So that's when I started going to the city council meetings to try and help my neighborhood out. I went there and I was able to get street lights, neighborhood watch signs, speed limit signs, street signs, and then I started up a voluntary neighborhood association in 2016, and then we were able to get a security camera, and that seemed to bring our crime down a little bit. Then we got our streets paved in 2017. I had been going before the council for over 2 years asking to get our streets top paved, and they came along in 2017 and did just that. So our neighborhood association, it keeps the front entryway cut, and they have community activities. We have a yearly annual meeting. I have a board, that we have meetings, and we're able to be represented at the city level. So now, since I have done all that, the city knows us now. And I love that. And because of that, not only did I improve my community, but it improves the city also.
We can talk more about your motivation for becoming city council person, and it was a surprise that this seat would be open last year when it came up in November. A surprise, probably didn't expect it to be open the following year. If it wasn't open, would you have been interested in running for it for this coming November?
I don't think so. I was going to I feel that Verlin Best had a pretty good stance in the community, and I don't know if I would have or not. I had talked with him earlier the year before, and I was trying to get a feel as to whether, he was going to go back up for election or whether he was going to retire. I was trying to get a feel for when he was going to retire, and he told me he may not. So I'm kind of waiting on him. And then when this came along, I was like, whoa.
Are you suggesting, though, he did help out, though, with the things that you got done? Was he a part of that as your representative?
Somewhat. Once he got to know me and who we were, and once I kept coming back before the council, then he sort of came along. We had a good relationship, Verlin and I, and he always showed up at our annual meetings and did a spiel and, talked about things that were happening in the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that the situation, the incident with Verlin Best. How do you feel about that personally? How that came about? And I guess I'll talk in more depth about it for people who may not know what happened. But you personally, how do you feel when that happened?
Well, it's just unfortunate, very unfortunate, and that he had to step down with that story behind him. Mm-hmm. And I feel for him. He's apologized for it. He first of all, when it happened, and I heard it on the news first because I missed that council meeting that night, and he called me 3 days after, and he was apologizing and explaining, and I told him, Verlin, I believe what you're saying. I believe you didn't mean any intention, but there's just certain things that you just can't say as a person that represents the city. So I wish him well. I went through his neighborhood a couple weeks ago to deliver flyers, and I went to his door and gave him a flyer, and we stood there and talked a little while, and I wish him well. Everybody makes mistakes, and I think the city needs to forgive and just move on.
I'm sure he appreciates hearing that. I've known Verlin personally for 5 years. I don't believe he's a racist. I believe that he probably was so confident and that he wasn't a racist, and that people knew he was a racist. For him to repeat this word that somebody else said, I think he felt like maybe he thought that was okay. Yes. And it wasn't, and I think he agrees with that at this point. Let us take our first break right now, and we'll come back and get some more details about Cheryl Bell, who is one of two candidates running for the Ward 2 seat for the city of Villa Rica. And you reminded me this morning, it's like, wow, you're going to have to run for this. The election is coming up here in 2 weeks or a week and a half. But then you're going to have to run again for the seat again in November. Whoever wins this one. Yes. So we'll talk more with Cheryl Bell. Right now it's 8:38. Community Voice program brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. And this morning we're streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama. Because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
It is now 8:40. Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. NewsTalk1330.com, also streaming live on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page this morning. You can see our lovely young guest, Cheryl Bell. She's one of two candidates qualified for the Ward 2 seat race in the city of Villa Rica. Early voting is today, also Monday through Friday of next week. Is it all Monday through Friday the whole time? Where is early voting?
Early voting starts in Villa Rica next week, and it's also continuing in Carrollton.
Okay.
So it'll be in two places next week.
And where is it in Villa Rica?
It's at Powell Park.
Powell Park, okay. And then Election Day itself is on the 19th. Are people going to get to their precincts to vote for that? To their?
It's only at Powell Park on the 19th.
Even on Election Day, it's Powell Park
yes.
too as well. What? How many precincts are there? I guess can you describe what your ward is so people listening this morning, so they know if they're in your ward or not?
There's 5 wards in the city. And my ward consists of the area along Highway 61 and somewhat up toward the high school. So we have the trails at Charleston Place, we have Summergate Subdivision, East Bay Springs, Twin Oaks, Pembroke, and some of the streets, Lassiter over there where Verlin Best lives. And that's
like everybody knows where Verlin lives. Lassiter, where Verlin lives. You've been in Villa Rica for 5 years, you say?
Yes.
Retired civil servant. What did that job entail?
Well, as a civil servant for the state of Michigan, I worked as an analyst, as a lead analyst. And, I don't know if you know the unemployment agency, but that's where I worked at the last 15 years there. And with the unemployment agency, you have 2 sides to that agency. You have the claimants and you have the employers. Well, I worked mostly on the employer end of that. So I dealt with the employers, their representatives, and setting up online services for them. In Michigan, we converted the mainframe system that they had, and we created a new entryway for them to go online and register and pay their tax. And the main thing that I did with the employers, I went all over the state of Michigan, as a lead analyst, and did workshops and presentations for the employers, which was very exciting. And the main thing that I'm a person, I like to spread knowledge. So what the employers would do is they would pay their federal tax first. There's a federal unemployment tax and a state unemployment tax. They pay the federal and they're going, well, I can't pay my state. And so I wanted to let them know that if you turn that around, if you pay the state first, then you get a huge credit back on your federal. So some of the employers we worked with that way in making them more knowledgeable about how to get their tax paid.
I think the two candidates, I think you guys probably do have a different skill set that maybe people will identify and decide on their own which they think is really important as far as a city council person. What would you bring? What do you think the skills are that you would bring?
Okay, along with my business and accounting background, I bring over 40 years of work experience, not just, in the capacity that I told you, but all over the place doing all different kind of things. I know what goes on in this city. I have attended many of the city's public meetings, public hearings, special called meetings, and given input in the city's workshops. And I've developed a good working relationship with the mayor, the city council, the city manager, the Villa Rica police chief, and other staff. And in doing that, and I really enjoyed taking part in the workshop for the master trail plan for Villa Rica. In fact, I helped give some input there, and they only had the trail coming down a certain way. They had it up toward the top of Villa Rica, Mirror Lake. They want to connect Mirror Lake and Tanner Health and all that. And me and my neighbor suggested, well, why don't you bring it down along Highway 61 so we can reach some of these other neighborhoods? And so they added that to the design. And also they were going to call it, they had this catchy name, they were going to call it 24K. And I suggested, that's just kind of, not clear. You don't know what the K, I know it meant carrots because we're the city of gold, but it could also mean miles.
Right, you think about yeah.
And it could mean something else. So I was like, just call it the Gold Nugget Trail. And a couple people heard me there, and I did submit it to the city. And the next time we met, they were calling it the Gold Nugget Trail. And I heard I wasn't the only one that said that mentioned that, but I was one of the ones that suggested the Gold Nugget Trail.
Something else that differentiates you from the other candidate in this race is that you are retired at this
Yes.
point. How much is City Council? Can City Council be a full-time job? Is that something? And I don't know if anybody really expects that of anybody, but to be a City Council person, would you make it a full-time job?
Yes, I could, but City Council itself isn't a full-time. It's not a full-time job itself. It's legislative. And so as much as I'd like to make it a full-time job, I don't want a full-time job anymore. I just want a part-time job. Mm-hmm. But I would be available to answer citizens, to attend citizens' issues and concerns.
It's being part of the city. I mean, I see that there are a lot of commission meetings, and there's probably 6 or 7 city meetings that are scheduled each month. If you're talking to constituents on the telephone, if you're checking out road issues and going to visit all their problems, I mean, those do take up some time. They
do. But let me let you know, the council, they only met once a month. Now, they may have some special called meetings, and now they're doing it twice a month. The other meetings that you're talking about are done by all the other commissions and groups. And see, most of the business that comes down through the city goes through the city first. It goes through community development. They have to fill out an application, get a permit. They have to go through the downtown development or the other one of the other boards and get approved. And then they come to the city council. So city council's job is mostly yay, nay, or we're going to find out some more information and we're going to bring this back up later.
Mm-hmm. You talked about growth in Villa Rica, and it's inevitable. A lot of people talk about, want to see growth, but we want it to be smart growth, I think is the phrase that's always used. Is there a good way to explain that? And do you agree with smart growth, or do you want to see growth slow down? How do you feel about Villa Rica, the way it's set in right now with 17,000 people?
Yes. Yeah. I like the idea of growth, and I believe most of the citizens want growth. And I do believe in smart growth because I have a vision for this city as well as all the other citizens that live here. And I believe most of them want the city to keep its charm and small town feel and its sense of community.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you keep it small? I mean, you think about one of the appealing things about Villa Rica for potential business in the future, and I guess people who want to be just far enough away from Atlanta, and I guess at this point people want to be just far enough away from Douglasville too.
Right.
But you're on I-20.
Right. Well, we do it like we did it in the past. In the past, the city didn't want to grow, and it didn't. When people came forward for permits and permission to build, the city didn't answer them or denied it. So after you get to a certain point, that's probably what's going to happen. And I'd like the idea of the right mix of businesses, which would help the city's economics. Like I'd like to see another department store here, a major department store. Mm-hmm. So we'd have more than just Walmart to buy clothes from, or Cato, or the sporting goods place.
Would you feel confident, if another Dollar General store, and I'm just going to pick Dollar General store out there right now because they are popping all over the place, and there are people who are speaking out against them. Uh-huh. But would you feel comfortable actually turning down a business like, say Dollar General store if they wanted to pop up someplace else in Villa Rica?
I would, because we have enough Dollar Generals. I love Dollar General. Don't get me wrong.
And again, that was just the first one that popped in my head. I didn't, but just any kind of business like that. I mean, there's Family Dollar or Dollar Tree, and just those kind of businesses where we feel like right now they're all within a mile,
right,
where they have access to that. But you'd be okay telling them no, we don't.
Yeah, because we have enough saturation of those stores. We need different types of businesses. Mm-hmm.
And right now, Villa Rica's industrial park is plumb full. Do you see anything in your ward, any place, any potential property there that could open up a new industrial park?
There's lots of land along my ward, but the issue is it isn't developable, at this point. And the city's looking at several spaces, and I'm sure they could use the TAD to develop that, and would promote that us to make a new industrial park. We do need one.
Mm-hmm. That TAD, you talk about that TAD, that's something they've kind of put on hold for a little bit. Voters approved it back in November, but they're kind of being slow on that right now because of the big water and sewer issues. That's my understanding. That's what they're trying to focus on first. Are you aware of those? I mean, how they affect? I mean, because I think they're coming south of I-20 is where the big problems are. Going back and forth under I-20.
Oh yeah, I'm very aware of those, and that's one of my campaign issues is the infrastructure. I want it to improve, and I want it to be sustainable for the new growth that we're expecting.
Would you ever be, or when is it okay to raise the millage rate in the city of Villa Rica?
Whenever we really desperately need to. We've been able to keep it down all this time by raising the water sewer rates. So hopefully we won't have to. The more citizens we get, and maybe we can incorporate more of the unincorporated areas of the city, which would provide more, more money to the city.
Could you see, looking at the future, like a future project that Villa Rica wanted to be part of? I mean, I think they're okay as far as water storage at this point. But if you were looking at a project 2 years ahead and somebody suggested let's raise the millage rate so we can collect some money so we can help pay for this project we want in the future, is that a good enough reason to raise the millage rate? If it's, I don't want to call it frivolous, but
no.
If it's something that's not urgent.
Not to me, because the city could have voted on the T-Splost, which would really have generated a good amount of money for us, and that didn't pass. And I hope that they bring it back up, because I don't know if the citizens were aware that most of that money coming in was going to come from non-residents, and it was only going to be...
It's about 60-40, right? Is that what the percentage was?
Yes. And it wasn't going to be forever. It had a time limit on it.
I think people's concern with the T-Splost, one of the concerns that I heard is once they vote on it, it kind of stays there forever. Just like Splost. Splost was approved here in the 80s, long before my time, but it's still here.
Well, if they vote on it, and it would have been here for about 5 years, you look around, you see, is the city doing anything they said they're going to do? And if they don't, then you don't vote on it next time.
Cheryl Bell, one of two candidates running for the Ward 2 seat on the Villa Rica City Council. Matthew Momtahan's the other candidate. He'll be on our program on Wednesday, so you'll have a chance to listen to him as well. But we'll come back with about 8 minutes to talk with Cheryl after this break. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System. News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and also streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page this morning. More after this.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama, because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and streaming live on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page this morning. I'm your host, Colin Worthington. Our guest is Cheryl Bell. She's one of two candidates running for the Ward 2 seat in the city of Villa Rica. Hard to believe that this seat, once the seat is determined in March the 19th, whoever is on that seat will pretty much just sit in there for 8 months. Or actually, they'll serve an 8-month term. Could have the possibility to serve 4 more years after that, but Ward 2 residents are voting this month, and they're also going to have to vote again in November for this very same race. How do you plan to involve residents in decision-making process if you learn of an issue for Villa Rica maybe that's coming up? I mean, sometimes city council residents learn of things that are coming up 6 months ahead of time, and they have to decide when it's right to discuss that, when it's to bring it up. How do you plan to communicate with your constituents?
Well, Miss Leslie McPherson, she has an email list, and she communicates the results of each council meeting, and I think I would end up trying to do that also. Another tool that I have is the Nextdoor app. The Nextdoor app has about 2,000, it reaches about 2,117 people right now, mostly, along and in my ward, but in the whole city. And my whole concern is connecting people and bringing people together. I didn't just wait to join Nextdoor when I decided to run so that I could use it for my campaign. I started using Nextdoor as soon as I heard about it in 2015. At that time, David Milliron was the city manager. He encouraged me to use it. I used it and invited all my neighbors, and now I'm a lead on that system and a founding member. And so over the years, I've shared many things and reached out across neighborhoods to help lots of people solve issues. So that's one of the things I would use. I kind of want to use it in the near future to find out what people feel about these fees on their utility bills. But like I said, my whole concern is connecting people and bringing people together. I truly like the concept of connecting the parts of the city. We got people coming down here from all over the country, and they need to feel a sense of neighborhood and community.
Do you think that maybe the tourism activities are promoted well enough for the city of Villa Rica? Do you think people, again, you have access to I-20 right there, and you're going to pass right through the city of Gold. Are those kind of things promoted enough for Villa Rica?
No, they're not. And, we got a lot of tourism money coming in for the state of Georgia, period, billions of dollars. And we need to access some of that. But I think before we can really start promoting it, we need to improve what we have. Like the Pine Mountain Museum really needs to be updated. They're updating it now, but I think there needs to be a really great big update. That's like the draw. That's the history of the city right there. And we need a Thomas Dorsey Museum. We need something that reflects Asa Candler. Tourism, I just found out last night, it generates, so far in Carroll County, it's generating $282 per household of money saved that we don't have to pay. So it saves citizens money. But I think once they do that and improve and update and make it a real big draw, then we should start promoting it. I'm looking at Southern Living magazine and places like that, and they highlight certain cities at times. And I looked at my husband. I read about a city, and they say South Carolina, whatever, and they have this and that, and festival and barbecue. Let's go there. Let's do that, So I think that's one of the things we should do to try to promote. We should market it more.
I got 2 minutes left in the program. Right. Let me ask you a question, and then I'll set you up for give us a goodbye speech. Is it important to communicate? They're two separate entities, the Carroll County School System and City Council, obviously, but is it important to communicate with those school board members, keep a good relationship with them, and know what's going on in the schools? Yes,
it is. And I went to the symposium with Dr. Pinckney a couple weeks back, and he gave us some good information about what the Carroll County schools are doing. I went to Bay Springs Middle School with Miss Bernice Brooks and heard her tell the students about the history of the city. And yes, it's very important. Very important.
We're going to have about a minute left in the program, so let me just set you up with the question here. If somebody's bumping to you on the street, Cheryl Bell, I saw you on Facebook this morning, but I didn't have any audio. So tell me why. They do have audio, but maybe they didn't have audio when they see you. So tell me why I should vote for you.
Well, I feel I'll be a valuable asset to this city. I feel I'll bring a fresh perspective and make a positive contribution while making sure the city doesn't outgrow itself. And I want to represent you.
Cheryl Bell, one of 2 candidates for that Ward 2 seat. It's going to turn out whoever you elect this week or next week, it's going to be an audition for the 4-year period for that ward. But Cheryl, we appreciate you coming down this morning and talking to us. A lot of good information. And we appreciate you listening at home and watching us on Facebook. Well, again, Matthew Momtahan is the other candidate. He'll be on our program next Wednesday. I believe on Monday's program, a young gentleman, local guy who graduated from the University of West Georgia, who's put together a new app which connects parents whose children are athletes, baseball, football, with good programs and good mentors in the area. That'll be an interesting program, again, Monday at 8:30. Have a great weekend, everybody.